Someone says something kind to you. Maybe they tell you that you're good at something, that you handled a situation well. That something you made or said or did mattered to them, that they're glad you exist in their life. And instead of saying thank you, instead of just receiving it, something happens. You deflect. Oh, it was nothing. You minimize. Anyone could have done it. You redirect. You're the one who. You laugh it off before it can land. You explain why they're wrong. You find the flaw in what they're praising. You do almost anything except simply take it in. And the strange part is, you wanted it. The recognition, the warmth, the moment of being seen, you wanted that. On some level, everyone does. But the moment it arrived, something in you refused it. And if you've ever sat with that refusal long enough to wonder about it, you've probably asked, why can't I just say thank you? Let's start with what's actually happening in that moment. When someone gives you a compliment, they're not just saying words. They're offering you a piece of information about yourself, a data point, a reflection. This is what I see when I look at you. And your brain doesn't just passively receive that information. It runs it against everything it already believes to be true about you. Psychologists call this self-concept, the sum of all the beliefs you hold about who you are. Your capabilities, your worth, your place in rooms you enter, the reasons people choose to keep you around. Your self-concept is built over years. It's reinforced by repeated experiences, by what was said to you and what wasn't, by what was rewarded and what was punished, by what you learned early on to believe you deserved. And here's the thing about self-concept. It resists contradiction. When someone offers you a compliment that doesn't match your internal image of yourself, that says you're talented when you believe you're merely functional, that says you're brave when you believe you're just coping, that says you deserve good things when some quiet part of you isn't sure, your brain doesn't update the self-concept. It rejects the compliment, not consciously, not maliciously, but automatically, defensively, the way any system rejects input that doesn't fit its model. The compliment isn't the problem. Your self-concept is the problem. And deflection is just your nervous system keeping that self-concept stable. There's a name for the specific discomfort of receiving positive information that contradicts your self-image. Leon Festinger called it cognitive dissonance, the psychological tension that arises when two contradictory pieces of information occupy the same mind at the same time. When someone praises you and you genuinely don't believe you deserve it, your brain is holding two incompatible things. They think I'm good at this, and I know that I'm not really. The tension between those two things is uncomfortable. It needs resolving. The easiest resolution isn't to update your self-image. That would require real work, real risk, real examination of the beliefs you've been operating from. The easiest resolution is to dismiss the compliment. If they're wrong about you, the tension disappears. The self-concept remains intact. The world makes sense again. And you say, oh, it was nothing, and mean it, at least in that moment, and move on. But where did the self-concept come from? Because you weren't born believing that praise was suspicious. You weren't born instinctively minimizing your own accomplishments. You learned that somewhere. For many people, compliments were unreliable in early life. They came with conditions. You did well. But imagine if you'd tried harder. They came with strings. I'm proud of you. So don't let me down. They came inconsistently, present when a caregiver was in a good mood, absent when they weren't, making your worth feel dependent on something outside your control. When praise is unreliable, you stop trusting it. When approval is conditional, you learn that external validation is a trap. That accepting it means accepting the conditions it came with. That believing a compliment means making yourself vulnerable to the devastation of the next withdrawal. So you build a system, a preemptive defense. You reject the compliment before the conditions can attach. You minimize your accomplishment before someone else can use it against you. You stay small so the drop can never be too far. That system was smart. It protected you. It just never got the update that said, you're not in that environment anymore. There's another layer underneath this. For a lot of people who struggle with compliments, the issue isn't just disbelief in the praise. It's something more specific, a terror that accepting it will be found out. This is the architecture of imposter syndrome. The internal monologue sounds something like, if I agree that I'm good at this, I'm making a claim, and claims can be tested. And if I'm tested, I might fail. And if I fail after accepting the compliment, the exposure will be catastrophic. So the safer option is to never make the claim at all, to hold yourself at one remove from your own accomplishments, to say I got lucky and mean it, not because you did necessarily, but because luck can't be tested. Luck can't fail. Luck is a way of never putting yourself on the line. The tragedy of this is that it keeps you in permanent exile from your own life. You achieve things, but don't own them. You're praised, but don't absorb it. You live in a version of your story where you're always the exception, the accident, the person who somehow slipped through a filter that should have caught them. And the compliments that were meant to close that gap, they bounce off because the gap is what feels safe. So what does it actually take to accept a compliment? Not perform acceptance. Not say thank you while internally running the disclaimer, but actually receive it. Let it land. Let it mean something. Let it become part of how you understand yourself. The first thing it takes is a willingness to tolerate the discomfort of cognitive dissonance rather than dissolving it by rejecting the praise. When someone says something kind and your instinct is to immediately deflect, pause. Stay in the discomfort for a moment. Let both things be true at the same time. They see this in me and I'm not sure I believe it yet. You don't have to resolve the tension by dismissing them. You can just sit with it. The second thing it takes is a gradual, deliberate updating of the self-concept. Not through affirmations, not through telling yourself things you don't believe, but through accumulating evidence. Small, real, specific moments where the world reflected something back to you that contradicted the old story, and choosing, consciously, to let that evidence count. This is slow work. It doesn't happen in a conversation or a video, but it starts with one small moment of letting something in. The third thing, and this is the one most people skip, is examining what accepting the compliment threatens. Because often, the resistance isn't just low self-worth. It's a loyalty to a version of yourself. The version that doesn't need validation because it's learned not to want it. The version that keeps itself small because small feels safe. The version that has organized an entire identity around not being too much, not claiming too much, not wanting too much. Accepting a compliment fully means letting that version go. And that's not nothing. That's actually a kind of loss, even if what comes after is better. Someone said something kind to you. They meant it. And you, for a moment, might let it mean something back. Not because they're definitely right. Not because you've resolved every doubt. Not because you've figured out how to feel fully worthy of every warm thing anyone has ever said to you. But because thank you is a beginning, not a verdict. And you're allowed to start there. Being shared. Psychology for the things you feel but can't explain. If this landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it.